If I'm known for anything, it's for large, extravagant cityscapes, and it's also for character work, which I enjoy very much. If I can go sort of general and state some obvious things, and then sort of get to the meat of the thing. Vision is a very complicated thing. It's not quite what we think it is. Vision is not like a camera. It's not. We don't actually see what we're seeing in front of us right now. Your actual vision is very narrow. It actually goes to here. That's the only area you can actually focus on. Right about that in front of you. The rest of it's kind of being patched together by your brain. Right about here, you're actually not seeing any color at all. You're not seeing detail, you're seeing black and white. But your brain is filling it in. It's contextualizing, and it's providing this kind of like patchwork. So what you're seeing right here, your field of vision, is this construction by your brain, getting information from your eyes. Your eyes flick around, and it produces this image. So what that means is that your brain is processing everything that's coming in. And your brain is not a neutral observer. Your brain has got priorities. It's very, very concerned with certain things, like keeping you out of danger. So for example, something moving on your peripheral vision, you'll tend to flick your eye towards that and look at it, and then get more information. And the other thing your brain is very, very sensitive towards is human faces. We're very, very concerned as social animals. We're very, very concerned about what people are doing around us and what we can see of people. And across the room I can see all your heads, and you're all looking at me. And I can make judgments about who you are and what you're thinking. And that's very important for my survival. I can see right across there's a gentleman over there right at the back. And his head, to me right now, is about, what, that size? I can look at him and I can judge who he is roughly. I can say how old he is, I can say what ethnicity he is, I can see he's male, I can see if he's looking at me and concentrating. If I was walking, standing in Times Square and I was looking across the street like 200 yards, I could probably see his face looking at me and go, why is he looking at me? Because we're very, very sensitized to human faces. So obviously that, as a storytelling tool, the human face must be important, right? If it's that important, if it's like one step down from like, I'm going to be killed, human faces are important. So as a storytelling tool, this is one of these things we have to add to our armory of useful instruments. Perspective, color, shading, anatomy, all these things we are required to learn as storytellers and comic artists. The human face and how it expresses itself is really, really vital, really important. So, thankfully there are a whole bunch of people who train for this kind of thing. They're not comic artists, but they are actors. These people actually study human emotion and how to express it. So with their craft, they can provide us with a lot of tools that we can use. Actors have a lot of things we don't need. I mean, large personalities and needy emotional requirements. But a lot of things they have. Physical expressivity is something that actors have. And for our purposes as, let's say, comic artists, physical expressivity means drawing ability. How can you draw? Can you draw well? If you can draw better, obviously, it's a no-brainer. If you draw well, you can express more. You can express more detail. You can express more finesse. That's a big thing, no question. They have emotional facility, which is often called empathy. That's a really big thing. And that's something that other people have too, not just actors, but we can learn a lot from writers in this. Because what writers spend their whole time doing, and what comic artists should spend their time doing too, and what as human beings we learn to do very, very small, is that we learn to build emotional models of other people. We look at them and we learn how they respond to things. The first one is our mother. We look at our mother and we look at her and say, uh-oh, that's not going to work out. We can't do that because she's going to get angry with me. If you start thinking like, if I bring that home, my girlfriend's going to flip. That means you have an emotional model of your girlfriend in your head. A little model there, perfect little three-dimensional thing which you've constructed through your experience, which is something that writers do all the time. But they've got very, very complicated models in their heads because they get them to interact and they construct stories with them. So that's a very useful thing to learn. It's something we can all use. And even as artists, if you have no ambition to write, it's a very useful exercise to actually write, because it creates this facility, an emotional facility in your head, an empathy which you can use as a tool to express through your drawings. What's next? Observation. Yeah, of course. We all need to know how to look. I don't know if you know how to keep sketchbooks. I mean, there's two kinds of sketchbooks in my experience. There's you go to see them at cons all the time, these perfect sketchbooks. You pick this thing up and you look at it and go, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. That's not a sketchbook. That's a portfolio. That's not a sketchbook. Sketchbook, a real sketchbook, is full of little scribbles. I mean, what we've been doing upstairs with these 2-minute scribbles, that's what it should be full of. Because you're not, with a real sketchbook, you're not drawing on paper, you're drawing in your head. You're actually picking up information and you're processing it in your head. Once you fill that sketchbook up, throw it in the garbage. It's not important. What's important is you learn from that. And this applies to every aspect of drawing, but especially for this, because if you're in public places and you're sitting, if you're drawing in the subway, if you're sitting in a park, if you're looking at somebody and you're looking at how they interact with the world, if you're studying their posture, how somebody walks, how somebody steps off a bus onto the platform, you can pick these things up and you can draw them very quickly. Very little sketches. Do little sketchbooks like that. Then you pick this kind of stuff up and it goes into your head and it goes into this big thing, this vast dark thing, your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind is what we draw on. It's the fuel that we use. And the more we have in there, the more we pile in there, the more we can pull out. Or the more things pop out randomly usually. It's not usually well planned. Your subconscious is a chaotic thing. But the more you put in, the more things will pop out. So the last thing is interpretation, interpretive drama. That's what actors use a lot, to interpret a script and find their way through it. We learn this in school. You do English in school, you've got to interpret text, you've got to read books, you've got to get book reports. Yeah, it's all very exciting, but this is actually a very crucial skill, and it's something that we have to do in comics very deliberately. So I've got an example here of a script I've just done, which is for a Nicolai Dante thing. I don't know if anyone follows Nicolai Dante here. Maybe some spoilers. Okay, you don't mind. Fine. This is a 6-page. I work in weekly chunks, so it's six pages a week. Now this is effectively Nicolai Dante strays from one extreme, from being a science fiction action adventure comic to being a romance comic. And this is a romance scene. I think everyone should be required to draw romance comics at some point, because you have to concentrate on so many aspects, which a lot of mainstream comics, especially superhero comics, do very badly. And the thing that does very badly, which is very important to acting, is subtext. It's actually not just drawing what is being said, but drawing what is being thought. You're reading the script. The script is there. It says the words. I am angry. You draw the angry face. I'm angry. Subtext is, I'm angry. My face isn't saying angry. It's saying sarcasm. It's saying something else. That's subtext. Subtext is doing two things at once. So this is one thing we have with comics, because with words and pictures we can do subtext, which is what they can do in films and theater and all these other things. And it's something we can learn from these media. Right, so I'm going to go through this script, because it seems like you actually want to see some pictures now. The context of this is Nicolai Dante, our swashbuckling hero, has been captured by his father, who's a megalomaniac, psychotic bad guy. And his father wants to marry his girlfriend. It's taken a long time to get to this stage, okay, so it's a bit complicated. His girlfriend is here. This is Jenna Makarov, who's the daughter of the old Tsar. The Tsar who's been imprisoned. And Dante's father has taken power. And he wants to consolidate his reign by marrying Jenna Makarov, this character here, who has been promised to marry Dante. So Dante's been imprisoned. The other character in this scene is Lulu Romanoff, who is Dante's half-sister. She's a daughter of Dante's father as well, by a different mother. And she's a very interesting character. She's very conflicted. And after being a friend of Dante for a long time, supporting him, helping him in his various struggles, she betrayed him recently, and as a result he's now imprisoned. So they have a very difficult relationship. So the scene itself starts off with the wedding procession. So that's the palace. That's the imperial palace there, the egg thing. I don't know if you can all see this. It's very difficult to see. The wedding procession is basically a military convoy, because it's not being done under goodwill at all, right? So they're proceeding to get to the wedding itself. And this is the bride, who's rather unwilling, but she's promised to marry Dante's father on the basis that he doesn't kill Dante and lets him go. So she's doing it out of a sense of duty. So she's going to visit Dante just before the wedding. So she rushes down the corridor. She's a very determined character. She's very focused. Her bridesmaid is Lulu, and there's no love lost between the two of them. It's nothing to do with romance in this wedding. It's completely political. And she kisses Dante. In this scene, this is all about obviously they're in love. She's very sad to see him like this, and she's saying goodbye. She's going to walk off at this point, marry his father, and then he's going to be released, and then he's going to be told to get out and never come back again, because at the moment he's the focus of a revolution, so they want to get rid of him. He's politically inconvenient. So at the moment, the emotional emphasis in this scene actually sits with Dante. Even though he's imprisoned, he's being cocky, he's being confident, he's smiling. She just kissed him. He's hanging out by a torture rack in a dungeon. He's being filmed for the entertainment of the imperial masses by his father, and he's gone through an awful lot, but he's being brave, he's smiling. So this is this scene here. What's the page 2, I think. You read that description of the panel here. Page 3, excuse me. Close. Dante and Jenna break off the kiss and stare into each other's eyes. Okay, so that's the actual direction. But at this stage, the way I want to play it is I want to do a shift of balance, a shift of power halfway through. And that's what I'm talking about, subtext. What's actually being stated in the words. She's saying, Dante's saying, much as it pains me to say it, you look great. And she says, it's all cosmetic, inside. And then she's looking a bit miserable about it. And she explains, I don't know, if you want to pass this around and people can actually look at this close, I'm moving around too much. I feel like I'm dying a new death every minute, every second. So this is her expressing herself. She's saying what she feels right now. So I'm give that one a very straight, sad interpretation. Easy, no problem. Close. Dante, devil may care, swashbuckler to the end. Then walk down that aisle and tell him to go to hell. Make a fool of him in front of his precious empire. The people love you, Jenna, and they hate him. So this is all bravado. He has the power right now. He has the emotional power. He's taken that. He wants to be brave for her. So he's being confident. He's got a swagger. Close. Dante, quarter profile, panel 4. Jenna touching a hand to his cheek, loving him all the more because of his recklessness. Jenna. And the first thing he'll do is kill you. And he'll take his time, and he'll make me watch. 5. Close. Dante, bravado. Bravado this time. He knows more than anything what Dimitri is capable of. Dante smiles. I'm too cool to kill. That's the middle panel there, where he's grinning like a maniac. And that's a recurring thing. That no matter how much shit he goes through, he comes back like, fuck you all. And that's a very Dante expression. No matter how bad things are, Dante doesn't give a shit. He's fine. So I'm too cool to kill. Close. Jenna, desperate, helpless. Whatever illusions she had are shattered. No, Nikolai, you're not. You're all too easy to kill. Dimitri showed us that. So things are shifting now. She's angry. She shifted from being sad and upset to see him. She's actually getting defensive and angry. Close. Lulu. You can see that panel at the bottom there with Lulu's face. Her expression is ambiguous as she eavesdrops. She's an important character in this scene because she's the betrayer. She betrayed Dante and Jenna. And really the only tool that Dante has at this point, emotionally speaking, is his relationship with Lulu and the fact that she still feels bad for what she did. He has nothing else to play with. So the scene, as the scene progresses, he's going to use that. Lulu is listening. Dante knows she's listening. Dante, don't talk like that. Don't give up. You have to keep fighting. There's no fight left in me, Jenna says. No more deaths, no more battles, not because of me. She's given up. So she's now walking away from him. She's distancing herself from him. And that's I don't know where the page has gone. Over there? Right here. Okay, right. That's we're panel 4 here. Right, Jenna becomes stoic, displaying a certain grace under pressure. She steps back a little, beginning to put distance between herself and Dante. So this is, I'm going to downplay this thing here. Because it's all very well to go very histrionic and emotional, like some kind of silent movie where everyone's going, oh. But at this point, it's very downplayed because she's trying to walk away from him. She's trying to emotionally distance herself. She's trying to build a mask. So that's what she has here. And as she does that, Dante gets angry. So the emotional balance is shifted. She's now carrying the power of the scene because she is emotionally withholding from him. And she does that by getting very stoic. She's royal. She grew up with this life. She knows how to repress her emotions, and she's using that as safety now to defend herself from the emotion of the scene. She's deliberately looking away. This is a very useful shot, by the way. This quarter shot. People are looking away, and you can just see that little bit of the emotion on the side of the face. I don't know if you can see that. It's a very useful shot indeed. You've got a lot of space there for speech balloons for a start, practically, but also you've got that kind of like hidden face. Very subtle. You can see the expression, but she's deliberately withdrawing herself. She walks away. She's now explaining what's going to happen. That's panel 4. Jenna trying to control her emotions. They have no choice. Jenna, you have to. It's the only thing that will give this world some chance of peace. No one did more than you, Nikolai, but you have to accept what's happened. So I did this now. I've set her posture here is very rigid. She's got a corset on. She's very stiff. Very erect. She's holding her shoulders high. She's holding her neck erect. She's turned away from him. She's framed by classical architecture. So she's accepting this life, her role, the role she was born to play, which is this accepting chattel, this political pawn, which is the royal princesses were always this. They're to be married off. They're to be used in the political power games. So she's accepting this now, and she says, okay, whatever we had, whatever freedom I had with you is now gone. That's now, I have to do what I'm supposed to do. So she's now framed herself in this very formal way, and that's what I've done, to express that. Dante's now angry. He's really angry. He now understands what's happening. He can't be brave anymore because he's just losing it. She's walking away from him. Whatever happens, he thought he could stand it, but he can't. So this is where this panel, all diagonals, it's all tense muscle, it's all screaming and shouting. This is him actually losing his rag. There we go, the distance, they're walking away, she's walking away. She bends down to pick up the veil she dropped earlier. So it's symbolic, she picks up the veil. Dante starts crying. And that's when Lulu starts to frame in the picture again here. She says goodbye at this point. And then she turns her head and she runs past and she cracks up. But she does it out of his eye shot, out of his shot. All the emotion she's pent up at this point comes out at this point here. So we know she's feeling it. She's not a complete cold bitch. She's feeling it, she's repressed it, and as she runs past Lulu, she lets it all out. He can't see that. Now Lulu's standing there. She has to get a last gloat in, because that's the kind of character she is. And this is where Dante starts to make his play, his emotional play to her. He's said, the script at this point says, that's page 5, I think. This isn't actually what the script writer wrote. He was a little bit more histrionic at this point, but I felt I should be more restrained, because the more restraint you have to this, the more the little bits of emotion ring true. You can't overplay. Overplaying is one of the worst things you can do, because if you have characters who are like always like that, nobody's really paying attention to anyone. 1 minute? Okay. Take 5 if you need. Okay. Right. So Dante now has only one thing left. He has an emotional thing to Lulu, and he's going to try and twist the knife on her because she's betrayed him, and she knows it. So this is what he's saying here. The line, I believe, is there you go. Dante, bitter disappointment, a hint of pity. So you're the maid of honor. That's a bit of an irony, isn't it? He says, you can't get me that way. But he persists. He's playing. He's carrying on playing this scene. He's carrying on. I should just keep passing these around. Sorry, keep going with it. Haughty and arrogant, she's described as. Spare me your content, Nikolai. It's hardly going to move me. She's famously unemotional. She's famously controlled. But he's still going to work on her. He's still going to try and stick that needle in. Contempt, he says, more like pity. You're not just who I thought you were. He's disappointed. This is a shouty scene. This is like very easy to do this scene basically like him going shout. But I don't want that. I want it to be a little more nuanced than that. I want him to look disappointed with her. I want him to be angry, but also I want him to get that feeling of betrayal. That this character who is important to him, their siblings, has done this to him, and she has to feel it that he's angry with her, and why he's angry with her. You're bowing down to Dmitri, their father, the man who murdered your mother and laughed as he burned her to death. It's complicated, this story. Close Dante, quiet, accusing rage in his eyes. There.
Yeah.
Right? So it's rage, but it's also disappointment, it's also pain. I thought you had more balls than that. At which point, she unleashes, this is her superpower, she can unleash these demons from her hands.
Oh.
And then they engulf him. But he's got what he wanted. She's been affected. She's not walking away. And this is Jenna reacting, obviously. She's a bit upset about it. But it doesn't matter. The important character in this place is Lulu. And what happens next is what she decides happens next.
Okay.
So he's planted that emotional seed in her head that he's disappointed with her. Not angry, not enraged, he's disappointed. Because he expected more from her. He expected her to have more balls. Right? Anyway. I think that's about as much as I can say. Any questions?
You're actually mapping out the sequence. Do you actually follow the notes of your writer as well? Do you collaborate with him, or do you say, "Hey, what are you trying to get here?" Because there's too much.
Usually, I know. The thing is, I mean, at this stage, because I've been doing this comic strip for 15 years, I know these characters back to front, and we've had discussions, general conversations about things. I know, for example, there's a big secret she has. Relation to Dante, which she's not telling. I mean, we've talked to her, it's not in the script, but I know this. It's a big deal actually if you're working in this to know your writer really well, because you can get an awful lot from them just talking to them. And actually get the writer to read the script to you, because it's actually really funny. They actually tell you, I mean, if Robbie Morrison reads the script of Dante to me, he acts it out, because he knows the emotional notes he wants to hit. And then I can see the emotional notes I think are there as well. And sometimes you can get little things that sort of adjunct to that or kind of reflect interestingly of the scene. Or you can go to it with unlimited depth if you have a lot of context with characters. And that's really, really interesting to me. And that's why I enjoy doing this comic so much, because the characters all have so much history. And you can shade everything. Nothing has to be absolute. You can shade it all kinds of different ways.
Can you just talk a little bit about the really subtle expressions? How do you reference that? Do you use a camera? Do you use a mirror?
I use a mirror.
You use a mirror?
I strongly urge you to be careful with cameras. Cameras are a trap. You can go down into the cameras and you spend your time actually drawing a photograph. Don't do that. If you're using a camera, what you do, you take a picture, look at the picture, study the picture, understand why it does what it does. You know your anatomy, you know how faces work. You look at the picture and you go, right, take it away.
I totally agree.
Right?
You got time for one more.
Because what's important is the pen, is the relationship between your brain, your hand. That's the expression of emotion. If you're doing something true, it'll come that way. If you're tracing a photograph of somebody having an emotion, it's like third hand by that time. It's no good. It's not true anymore. Sorry.
Using photos can be a trap.
It can be a trap, yeah. Really.
Yeah.
I mean, use it for specific things like lighting or something, but don't rely on it. Really, it'll kill you.
How important was it to you from the very beginning for storytelling to retain something that can apply to everybody? You know, you avoided a simple good guy, bad guy power play by giving a whole kind of spectrum. What inspired you, or at least ignited the flame to just keep on actually conveying real emotion in those situations?
Because I think, we all have a kind of bullshit detector. You watch a TV show or a movie, and if it's not, the acting's bad, you can feel it. You can just go, it's not working. We all have that. I mean, that's part of our emotional makeup anyway. We kind of feel it. We feel somebody's lying to you, or it's not true, it's false. And I've this, I took this sequence because I've drawn every single panel in here about 3 times. Because the first response to this is usually super text. Second, when I'm maybe getting the subtext, and maybe by the 3rd time, or I come back to it later and go, oh right, I could do a little bit more subtle thing with that. Because I think about this a lot. I should subtext this, I should subtitle this whole thing as like, talking heads can be fun. Because I spend more time doing talking heads than I actually spend in action scenes. Because it's more interesting to me people blowing up than emotions. The emotions blowing up than people blowing up things.